Grüß, willkommen in einem Fragens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 25 of my Star Trek, the original series timeline analysis series of videos. In this video, I will cover Kirk's 5-year mission. That is when Captain Kirk was the captain of the Enterprise over his 5-year period. As with my other videos, it's really impossible to determine the year Kirk's mission actually began and what period are covered in the 3-year seasons with any real accuracy. But there are a number of clues which can assist me in determining when Kirk's 5-year mission occurred, and 2 methods of identifying the current date of the season. The first source we have is a quote from the episode Miri, coupled with an assumption by Okuda, which is almost certainly the father of all Star Trek timelines, so should be taken with a great deal of respect. According to the Okuda timeline, Kirk's 5-year mission lasts from 2264 to 2269, based on the assumption that the original series is set exactly 300 years after its original broadcast. The aired live-action Star Trek episodes are dated from 2266 to 2269, or actually 1966 to 1969 in our time, but 300 years, it's 2266 to 2269. I'm uncertain where the 300 years comes from, but it's likely from the Miri episode. This means the first episode of Season 1 must represent the 3rd year of the mission, which is 2266. In the episode 8 of Season 1, Miri, Spock indicates all adults died on this planet, which I call Earth 2, 300 years ago. Spock indicates the planet is the same as our Earth was approximately in 1960. The disease which kills the adults acted very quickly, well within a year. The assumption is the disease occurred in the same year as Season 1 of Star Trek was first aired. The episode was aired in November 1966, which makes it 2266. In an interview in the book The Making of Star Trek by Stephen Wilford in 1991, Roddenberry states that Star Trek's first season takes place after the mission had been underway for some time. It must be pointed out that this was 24 years after the first episode was aired. If nothing in the original series of Star Trek conflicts with this statement, we will almost certainly take it as part of canon. However, there is at least one piece of information in Season 1 which makes this very unlikely. While the start year of the mission is 2264, as stated by Okuda, it's reasonable and causes no issues with other events, so let's stick with it. There are, however, issues with Season 1 starting in the 3rd year of Kirk's 5-year mission. Starting in the 3rd year of the mission causes too many issues with other dates in the episodes, such as Spock's relationship with Leela. I thus have assumed the Okuda dates are correct, which means the mission now starts 298 years after the broadcast date in 2264. This allows us to assume the animated series covers the last 2 years of the mission. But this is not the reason why I have selected a 298 year after broadcast theory. It's just a useful side effect of it. I must note that it's possible Gene Roddenberry wanted Season 1 to start in the 3rd year to ensure the animated series would not be considered as the remaining 2 years, and as such part of canon. Gene did not want the animated series to be considered as canon. At least he did not wish this, or this was certainly the case in 1991. I'm uncertain what his thoughts were on the matter were prior to this date, but that certainly was his thoughts by 1991, which was many years after the first 3 seasons were filmed. In the episode This Side of Paradise, Spock is spending time with Leela 6 years prior to the 1st year of Kirk's mission, which implies he went on a 5-year mission with Pike before he joined Kirk, and is on the 1st year of a 5-year mission with Kirk. If this was the 3rd year of Kirk's mission, this could not occur. So the 3rd year theory is unlikely to be correct, unless we assume Pike's mission, that's the 2nd mission, was only 3 years in length rather than the what seems to be typical 5 years. There's no evidence in the original series scripts to support the episode started in the 3rd year of the mission, and there is evidence it did start in the 1st year. I'll assume the 3 seasons represent the first 3 years and the animated series the last 2 years. It may not be correct, but for our purposes it's the simplest guess which fits all the facts in the scripts. The statement made in 1991 was many years after the original series was shown, and Gene was beginning to change his vision at that point. Certainly nothing wrong with that, but as a result, he may be going back and trying to revise his original thoughts. My objective in this video is to identify what his vision was when the series first came out, not what it may have been, let's say, a quarter of a century later. Let's look at a little bit more evidence. We know that Spock met Leela on Earth 6 years ago. This would not be during his 5-year mission with Kirk, but was probably a gap between the 5-year mission with Pike. This statement is made in This Side of Paradise. Spock served for 11 years and 4 months with Pike, which is probably a 5-year mission, a 1-year 4-month refit of the Enterprise at Earth, and then another 5-year mission with Pike. He would have met Leela during the 1-year period he spent on Earth, or to be exact, 1 year 4 months. Even if the Enterprise returned to Earth during a 5-year mission, let's say he was in the second mission with Pike in return, the Enterprise would not stay long enough for Spock to meet Leela and start a relationship with her. I'm not certain that a one-night stand would count as a relationship or the relationship shown in the episode This Side of Paradise, so it's very unlikely this occurred. Anyway, to another point, the Enterprise, as far as I can see in the original series, never returns to Earth in the current time anyway, so that's probably an unlikely occurrence even when Pike was in charge of the Enterprise. It's possible the Enterprise may have returned to Earth in between the 2 5-year missions, that's Pike's first 5-year and second 5-year, but without a 1+ year refit in between those 2 missions, it's unlikely the Enterprise would have stayed for a long time at Earth, and this would mean Kirk's 5-year mission needs to be in its last year, which is not kind of possible. Spock had strong feelings for Leela, which would have taken time to develop. It's not impossible the Enterprise experienced a major refit and did stay for a long time, such as, let's say, 6 years. That is, Pike came back, and the Enterprise stayed on Earth for 6 years and 4 months. However, that is really unlikely. The starbases would be able to do all the maintenance and repair required, while allowing the Enterprise to remain on station at the borders of the Federation territory. Thus, this must have been before he was appointed to the Enterprise. Unless the Enterprise experienced massive damage, which would require basically being rebuilt, and there's no evidence in any of the scripts to indicate this occurred between Pike and Kirk, it's not going to be on Earth for 6 years and 4 months. The 1 year 4 month period to do a refit with up-to-date equipment as it got given to a new captain makes a little bit of sense, perhaps, but not 6 years. Other information that we get from the Side of Paradise. Leela spent 1 year travelling to the colony and 3 years on the colony, so she must have spent 2 years on Earth after meeting Spock. The most likely scenario was Spock was with Pike for a 5-year mission, returns to Earth for a refit, that's the Enterprise returns to Earth for a refit. Spock then meets Leela on Earth, then has another 5-year mission with Pike. Then the Enterprise once again returns to Earth, where Kirk took command, which was in the first year of the 5-year mission. I suspect between Pike and Kirk there was another refit which took possibly some time, during which Spock was not under the command of Pike or Kirk, but I suspect this was a fairly short gap. Remember, we've got 1 year and 4 months to play with. This is not conclusive, but if it was the 3rd year of the mission, then Pike's mission would need to be a 3 or maybe at a stretch 4 years in length with no refit. There's no reason why his mission should be so short, while Kirk would be longer. Let's look at some scenarios which make some sense. Both of these scenarios shown could be valid if Pike's mission lasted 3 years, that is, second mission. Some reason needs to be given to explain why the Pike mission was shorter, because no reason is provided that this 3-year scenario is much, much less likely. Kirk obviously had some familiarity with Spock in the episode Where No Man Had Gone Before, but this could have been gained as the Enterprise travelled out to its objective, or to go on station at the edge of the galaxy. Where No Man Has Gone, or the location that the Enterprise travelled to in the episode Where No Man Has Gone, was set 500 light years from Earth, which would have taken several months to get there, so plenty time for the two men to get to know each other. My final conclusion, it's likely the 5-year mission began in 2264, ended in 2269, and Season 1 corresponds with the first year. Each year would span, obviously 2 Earth calendars, so the first year of the mission would have spanned 2264 to 2265, but it would have begun in 2264. This is probably very likely because some sources indicates the mission ended in 2270. And that's actually quite possible if the mission, let's say, began halfway through 2264. Just as a bit of a, curveball, in the episode The Skies of Gothos, there is evidence the actual year that the episode occurred in was 2805, which does not match with anything we have been using so far. Mind you, this date may actually be correct, and it's possible all our early estimates are totally wrong because they're based on Akura's estimate of this 300-year gap from the current time in the episode to our real time, or when the episodes were actually being broadcast. In the episodes The Squire of Gothos, Trelane views Earth from 900 light years away, thus sees Earth 900 years ago. There is a bust of Napoleon shown, who was at his peak round about 1805, which means it must be around 2805. If this is 2264, then Trelane is viewing Earth during the year 1364, which is in the Middle Ages. There's nothing about this episode which applies it's in the 14th century, so this cannot be correct. I then suspected an error had been made and the distance is actually 460 light years away. That is, Trelane is actually 460 light years away from Earth, which would allow Napoleon to be mentioned. If this is correct, the size of the Federation is about the size I estimated, which is 300 to 400 light years radius with Earth in the centre. If the 900 light year value is correct, the Federation is a lot larger than we may have thought, based on density of stars, speed of warp, etc. Now, if the density of stars is much less, that is, density of populated or habitable planets, and then warp speed is much greater, then the Voyager, from another Star Trek series, should be able to return to Earth much sooner than stated in the episode itself. While there are many benefits in assuming the current year is 2805, because, quite frankly, there is a piece of evidence in the script which clearly tells us what the current year. The advantages are we have more time for the Federation to expand, and we could match the timelines up with our real timelines. But such a 440-year change would require so many changes to be made to the timeline that currently exists. I really have no interest in doing so, especially since it would no longer align with Akuda. I will adopt the theory that the distance of Trelane's planet is not 900 light years, it's actually 460 light years, thus making it an incredibly weak reference to indicate the current year is 2264. If it's the first year of Kirk's 5-year mission, then this again aligns with Akuda. However, this is weak evidence. I would only use it to confirm other stronger evidence. As it aligns with my speeds of warp and distances in the Federation, it can act as weak evidence to confirm those other speculatively weak evidence. So I've gathered a whole bunch of weak bits of data points to give us this 2264 timeline. But I have to admit, it would have been very good if Akuda, looked at this particular episode when he created his original timeline and basically assumed the year was 2805 and then built all his years based around that. Because then I think we would have a more robust time frame. But that's not what occurred, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to stay with the Akuda 2264 start of the mission. Let's now look at James R., or later T. Kirk's history, or everything we happen to know about it. We can see the birth date of James R. Kirk, which is 012771. The current star date is 1313.7. which may be wrong as the episode starts at stardate 1312.4. Let's not worry too much about stardates. Later, James' middle name changes to T. I should note in the original series the date actually looked like 1818.7 rather than 1313.7. An enhanced and tampered version is shown on the bottom left. The estimate is James T. Kirk was born in 2228. I have no idea if this is correct or not, but let's run with this to date to see if it aligns with other script facts. In the episode The Conscience of the King, we know there was a famine on Tarsus V, which occurred most likely in 2240. Kirk was on the planet and must have been about 12 years old when this event occurred. This is surprisingly credible, if we assume my formula of population or colony population growth is correct. In the episode The Conscience of the King, it mentions there are 8,000 colonists on the planet. Based on my colony growth formula, this could mean that it's about 13 years old. It's likely Kirk was 12 at the time, which means he could have been born on Tarsus IV and his parents were early colonists. This kind of confirms Kirk's birth date, indirectly and possibly with an error factor, but most importantly, it does not start a line of inquiry which could indicate all the dates are wrong. This, very weakly, indicates Kirk's birth date was in 2228 and the famine occurred in 2240. In the episode Whom Gods Destroy, we discovered the Battle of Axanar was required reading at the Academy when Kirk was attending. We know the battle probably occurred in 2245, which must be well before Kirk attended the Academy, so books can be written on the battle. My guess is Kirk entered the Academy when he was 21 in 2251, graduated in 3 years and served on the Farragut under Garavik as a lieutenant until the captain was killed in the same year, 2254. This is pure guesswork and is based on Kirk graduating in 3 years. Kirk served on the United Starship Republic, number 1372, with Commander Finney. I suspect this was a training mission, as Commander Finney was an instructor at the Academy. Unfortunately, I have no idea of the dates. I only have some guesswork around the dates. Kirk visited this planet in the episode A Private Little War, A Garden of Eden, or A Pella, 13 years ago in 2252. That is 13 years before the episode A Private Little War. This was the year after Spock started reporting to Pike and several years after the Vulcanian expedition in 2247. Kirk visited Axanar on a peace mission when he was a cadet, sometime between 2251 and 2254. Let's now put these additional facts into our already established timeline. My guess is Kirk entered the Academy when he was 21 in 2251, graduated in 3 years and served on the Farragut under Garavik as an ensign until the captain was killed in the same year, 2254. We know that. Kirk served on the USS Farragut under Captain Garavik, and when this occurred, he was probably 24 years old. Kirk was 34 when he became captain, possibly in 2264, or maybe earlier. This means in 2254 he was 24 years old. It seems Kirk graduated in 3 years, so if this incident occurred in the first year, he entered the Academy when he was 21. I suspect he was younger, but let's say with 21 at the present moment. In Obsession, it's stated Kirk is a young officer. He joined the Farragut as a lieutenant. In the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, Michael mentions Kirk was a bookworm. However, this may be at a later date, as he was Lieutenant Kirk teaching at the Academy, probably at that time. Perhaps this teaching role occurred for a short time after Kirk graduated and before he joined the USS Farragut. Perhaps he did the teaching role while he was actually studying through his 3-year period. In the episode Obsession, they clearly state Kirk served on the USS Farragut under Captain Garavik. While on the ship, Kirk encountered the gas creature in 2254 when he was about 24 years old. Nearly half the crew and captain were killed. Kirk was one of the survivors. Kirk served under Captain Garavik. He was Kirk's commanding officer from the day he left the Academy. In Obsession, Kirk is a lieutenant. In the episode What a Little Girl's Made Of, Kirk mentions a translation of medical records from the Orion ruins, which was required reading at the Academy. We know Kirk must have read this material, written by Corby. Corby was missing for at least 5 years, if not more. Probably went missing in 2259. Kirk also studied history written by John Gill, who went missing in 2263. This easily allows him to write the book books Kirk read when Kirk was in the Academy between 2251 and 2254. I have to admit I may have missed some facts in the scripts related to Kirk's life in my current analysis, but as it does not impact general history, it's a low priority to me. But I do find interesting relationships when I study this in great detail, which gives me clues of Kirk's life. And if I come back and add them to a version 2 of this video, I may come up with some additional information about where and how I think Kirk's life panned out. I was going to cover Kirk's journey in this video, but I'll create a separate video for that. You can find my early attempts in my Season 1 and Season 2 conclusion videos, but as these are reasonably old, I expect my next attempt will be more detailed, so please view them rather than my older archived videos on that particular topic. And so we now once again come to an end of episode 25 of my Star Trek The Original Series Timeline Analysis series of videos, in this case covering Kirk's 5-year mission, or actually Kirk's life. The episode scripts can be found using the URL shown. Alle guten Dingen kommen zu einem Ende.